It was the kind of crime that shocked a small college town in Idaho to its core. In the span of just 11 days, 4 people were brutally murdered, leaving the tight-knit community reeling. The perpetrator, it would later be revealed, was someone that nobody would have suspected: Bryan Kohberger, a well-respected psychology professor at the University of Idaho. What followed was a trial that captured the attention of the entire country and shed light on the darkest parts of the human psyche. The several students of the University of Idaho lived in a rented off-campus home in the rural college town of Moscow, Idaho. The 3-story home had 6 bedrooms, 2 on each floor. In the early morning hours of November 13, 2022, the 4 college students were stabbed to death in the shared rental home close to campus, in which 3 of them resided. The 3 female victims, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, and Xana Kernodle, lived at the house, while the 4th victim, Chapin, was Kernodle's boyfriend who was sleeping over on the night of the attack. 2 other female roommates also lived at the house. They were not attacked. Earlier on the evening of November 12th, 2 of the 4 victims, Chapin and Kernodle, were at an on-campus party at the nearby Sigma Chi fraternity. They returned home at 1:45 a.m. That evening, the other 2 victims, best friends Mogen and Goncalves, had gone to the Corner Club, a downtown sports bar, at around 10 p.m., from which they departed at 1:30 a.m.
Hello!
Hi!
Welcome back.
Thanks. Hi.
A live-streamed video on Twitch by the Grub Truck, a food truck 4 blocks south at Friendship Square, showed Mogen and Goncalves at 1:41 a.m., chatting and smiling, getting their food. 10 minutes later, they were shown leaving to take what the police initially said was an Uber ride home, a trip of about 1 mile. All 4 students were home by 1:56 a.m. 7 uncompleted phone calls were made from the phone of Goncalves to her former longtime boyfriend from 2:26 to 2:52 a.m. Mogen also called the boyfriend 3 times with similar results from 2:44 to 2:52 a.m. These calls were investigated, and police concluded he was not involved in the crime. Kernodle received a DoorDash order around 4 a.m. The 2 surviving roommates had returned home by 1 a.m. Original reports state they were in their beds on the ground floor of the home at the time of the killings. They were not attacked or held hostage. It is speculated they slept through the killings. However, the affidavit for the case confirmed 1 surviving roommate was sleeping on the 2nd floor, the same floor as Kernodle and Chapin, before she was awoken by what sounded like Goncalves and her dog. She later heard her roommate saying something to the effect of, "There's someone here." The roommate believed this was said by Goncalves, although investigators also believe this might have been Kernodle speaking, as a forensic download of her cell phone showed that she was on the app TikTok at 4:12 a.m. The surviving roommate opened her door twice within a short span of time, and the second time heard what sounded like crying coming from Kernodle's room and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Security cameras near the home picked up the sound of whimpering, a loud thud, and a dog barking numerous times starting around 4:17 a.m. The surviving roommate opened her door a 3rd time and saw a figure in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. The man, whom the roommate did not recognize, walked past her and used the sliding glass door to exit. It is unknown if the man saw her. The roommate stood frozen in shock, then locked herself in her room. The 4 victims were stabbed to death on the 2nd and 3rd floors, each in their own bed. The victims were not gagged or restrained, but the walls at the scene were spattered with blood. Mogen and Goncalves were found in Mogen's bedroom, and Kernodle and Chapin were found in Kernodle's room. No calls to 911 were made until 11:58 a.m. When police arrived, the door to the home was open. There was no sign of forced entry, and nothing appeared to be missing. The 2 surviving roommates were in the residence when the police arrived, as were other friends of the victims. The surviving roommates had called friends over to the home because they believed one of the 2nd-floor victims was unconscious and was not waking up. The identity of the 911 caller was not released, and the person was not considered a suspect. 4 Idaho University students were pronounced dead at noon. Ethan Chapin, 20, of Conway, Washington; Kaylee Goncalves, 21, of Rathdrum, Idaho; Xana Kernodle, 20, of Avondale, Arizona; and Madison Mogen, 21, of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Chapin was a freshman, Kernodle was a junior, and Goncalves and Mogen were both seniors. On the evening of November 13th, the university canceled classes for November 14th. They scheduled a candlelight vigil to be held on the UI Administration Building lawn on the evening of November 16th, but then postponed it for 2 weeks due to the severity of the crime. Many students and other Moscow residents felt uneasy and not safe, leaving to begin an early Thanksgiving holiday far away from the area. Other residents who stayed were anxious and cautious, and a number of professors canceled their classes because of weather concerns. The candlelight vigil was moved indoors to the Kibbe Dome and was held on the evening of November 30th.
But I would like to start by saying my name is Stacy Chapin. I'm Ethan's mom. I'm here tonight with my husband, Jim, Ethan's dad, and his brother, Hunter, and his sister, Maisie, who are also vandals. I think you knew he was a triplet, and they all go here as well.
The case quickly spread through social media. Users began to speculate and spread rumors and misinformation about the case. In response, the Moscow Police Department criticized internet sleuths for creating rampant online rumors and disrupting investigations. Police warned that people harassing or threatening those potentially involved with the case could face criminal charges. The Latah County coroner conducted autopsies on the 4 victims on November 17th. She confirmed they were all stabbed multiple times with fatal wounds in their chest and upper body with a large knife. At least one, and possibly more, appear to have tried to fend off their attacker. The rest of the victims may have been attacked while sleeping in their beds. None showed signs of sexual assault. All 4 deaths were deemed a homicide by stabbing. A surviving roommate who saw the suspect described him as a male stranger that was around 5 feet 10 inches and not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. On November 19th, a phone tip line and email were created for students and others to submit potential evidence to officials. As of December 5th, it was reported that there had been more than 2,600 emailed tips, 2,700 phone calls, and 1,000 digital media submissions from the public to these tip lines. The police initially left open the possibility that there could be more than one perpetrator. Police stated it was a targeted attack, but had not concluded if the target was the residents or its occupants. In a November 23rd press conference, the Moscow police chief stated that authorities had received a number of tips declaring Goncalves allegedly had a stalker, but were unable to verify that claim or identify any such individual at that time. After receiving hundreds of tips from the public, on December 15th, police announced they were searching records of approximately 22,000 fifth-generation Hyundai Elantras that were made between 2010 and 2015. A camera in the area of the killings had captured an image of an Elantra around the time when the killings happened. Investigators noticed that the white Hyundai Elantra appeared to travel in the direction of Pullman, Washington, and twice to the apartment of the victims. Surveillance videos also showed an Elantra passing by the victim's home 3 times, beginning around 3:29 a.m. At 4:04 a.m., the Elantra returned to the home for a 4th time. At 4:20 a.m., the vehicle was seen leaving the victim's neighborhood at high speed. Investigators traced the ownership of this vehicle to a local individual, Bryan Kohberger, who drove the car with his father to the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania for the holidays. He was pulled over twice within a nearly 5-mile radius by Indiana State Police on Interstate 70 outside Greenfield, Indiana, for speeding and tailgating. Investigators obtained cell phone data that showed that Kohberger's phone stopped connecting to the network around 2:47 a.m. in Pullman on November 13th, before reconnecting around 4:48 a.m. near Blaine, Idaho, which is near U.S. Highway 95 south of Moscow. Cell phone data also shows that he was near the victim's residence around 9 a.m. on November 13th, approximately 5 hours after the killings. Police also obtained data that indicated he was near the residence at least 12 times between June 2022 and November 13th. Investigators had additionally obtained a sample of DNA from the crime scene that did not belong to any of the victims. The DNA was found on a tan leather sheath on Mogen's bed. Using a public genealogy database, authorities identified a partial match to an individual with a familial connection to Kohberger. Investigators then traced the DNA to Kohberger by matching it to DNA found in the trash that was recovered from his family's home in Pennsylvania. Prior to the arrest, investigators monitored Kohberger outside of his parents' Pennsylvania home. He was seen multiple times wearing surgical gloves and observed him putting trash bags inside the garbage can of a neighbor. The items were sent to the Idaho State Lab for testing. According to authorities, a search of the home where Kohberger was arrested revealed a knife, a pistol, and a black face mask. At the time of his arrest, authorities found Kohberger in the kitchen dressed in a shirt and shorts, while wearing examination gloves and putting the trash into separate Ziploc baggies. A 28-year-old man, Bryan Kohberger, was taken into custody by an FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police on December 30th in the home of his parents in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. In the summer of 2022, Kohberger moved to Washington State to pursue a PhD at Washington State University in Pullman. Its campus is less than 8 miles west of Moscow. At the time of the killings, he was a doctoral student in criminology and had completed his first semester 9 days before his arrest. Kohberger had been a teaching assistant at WSU, and less than 2 weeks before the murders, Kohberger was terminated from his teaching assistant role due to his unsatisfactory performance. This included his failure to meet the norms of professional behavior and interactions with the faculty. Kohberger was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary, was appointed a public defender, and was detained without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. On his return to the county courthouse on January 3, 2023, he agreed to extradition. On January 4th, he was flown to Pullman, driven to Lada County Jail in Moscow, and held without bail. Kohberger made his first appearance in the Lada County Courthouse on January 5th and was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary for breaking into a home with the intent to commit a felony. 1 week later, on January 12th, Kohberger made his second appearance for a status conference in the same room at the courthouse. Kohberger is now expected to enter a plea on June 26th. This means the Lada County prosecutor has until the end of July to officially pursue the death penalty. It is unknown what the motive was for the killings. Some say it was emotional arousal. Others say it was pure hatred. Kohberger has not pleaded guilty and maintains his innocence. He is currently being held without bail and has said through an attorney he expects to be exonerated. On February 24, 2023, University of Idaho President C. Scott Green announced that the house where the killings occurred was donated to the university. A memorial garden for the victims on the University of Idaho campus is being planned. The case of Bryan Kohberger highlights the devastating impact that a single individual's actions can have on an entire community. As we close out today's episode, let's remember the importance of living life and loving our loved ones. In honor of the 4 young Idaho University students who had their lives so cruelly taken from them, leaving their loved ones in grief with no possible cure. If you're interested in following this case, we'll be posting an update once the verdict is reached.